I love farm life. Is that weird? Because my grandmother used to tell us stories about the summers spent on her grandmother's farm, and the descriptions of the fields and the little koi pond had an air of playful exaggeration that still doesn't feel real. The chutzpah with which her bubby would hash 24 scrambled eggs every morning for her farmhands, the sprawling sunlit foyer where she learned to play the piano, the disgusting outhouses swarming with horseflies. I was entranced. And though I've worked on a farm since hearing these stories, my experiences never quite lived up to the magic of her childhood. Funny enough, I don't really play any farming sims like Stardew Valley or Harvest Moon, but starting today, I am determined to try. The Stillness of the Wind, the 2019 game by developer Fellow Traveler, plays on the dichotomy between rural and city living, weaving a narrative through life on a farm and letters in the mail. You play as Talma, an elderly woman living alone on the land that her family has nurtured for generations, spending your days tending to land and livestock, foraging for mushrooms, reading, cooking meals, the staples of time spent alone. All the while, Talma receives letters from her family in the city beyond, heartbeats crossing the desert distance. Fittingly, the only other character present in the game is the postman, a jovial guy who's been running the same route for decades and has grown fond of schmoozing with Talma. Since the phone is out of commission, he's her only through-line to her family in the city beyond. To be clear, The Stillness of the Wind is not a farming sim. It's a deliberation on the choices we make and the ways we keep ourselves alive. And I mean that literally, but we'll get back to it later. The farming itself is little more than a few well-timed left clicks. Talma walks unhurriedly from basket to coop, from bucket to goat, and even more slowly when she's exhausted and needs sustenance. But she's an older woman, and her fatigue is real. That's the point. While some might find it tedious or boring, The Stillness of the Wind champions slowness as a core mechanic, honing in masterfully on the passage of time and the duration of a day. Still, it felt clear from the start that the game didn't want me to succeed. I might just be bad at resource management, but I found it near impossible to complete any single task in a day's time. I'd start one morning by milking goats and schlepping the bucket into the hut to make cheese, but Talma gets tired partway through the second wheel. She needs to eat, so I go make some eggs. And wouldn't you know, it's gotten dark. The sands don't reflect enough light for Talma's bleary eyes, and she's exhausted. I knew I should have haggled for that lantern the postman was selling yesterday. So it's time for bed, and tomorrow we'll do it again. I think I'll water the tomatoes. Oh look, the postman's here. Will you take a chicken for some onion seeds and some bales of hay? Wonderful, and thanks for the letter, friend. Hey, didn't I have 7 chickens yesterday? Now I only see 5. Shoot, it's dark. Better make some dinner. Guess I'll hit the hay. Oh, right, let's forage for some mushrooms. I wonder if I'll find— Ooh, a figurine. What's this? Ah, the postman. I won't make it in time. Hey, where's my other goat? Now I can't make enough cheese to— Darn, I'm running low on eggs. Time for bed. I think I'll read a bit before— Hey, what's— Oh my goodness! Back inside! Back inside! My flowers are dying. There are no goats left. There's not enough time in the day to— I'm almost out of eggs. I won't make it in time for— I'm moving as fast as I can, but I can't do it all. Talma can't do it all. No matter how hard she tries, she's fighting a losing battle. She moves at a glacier's pace, and the days run faster than her legs can carry. But Talma's toils to sustain herself and her homestead are not to say that she should have followed her family off to the city. The labors of a life alone may be heavy for one elderly woman to bear, but Talma's walking the path of solitude she chose, and seeking the personal fulfillment one can find in that. Think Agnes Martin or Hilma af Klint, 2 badass ladies that secluded themselves to paint and find strength in the spiritual. For some excellent writing on their work, and that of Emma Coons, I recommend the collection of essays titled 3 Times Abstraction. Talma, like these women, chooses to live with sincerity, following in the stead of countless generations of matriarchs in keeping the land alive. Yet her life on the farm doesn't come with the benefit of surplus, but with the caveat of survival. Yes, she trades goods with the postman, but she's only ever receiving things she needs to maintain the land. Unless you waste your resources on overpriced material goods that serve no purpose other than the decorative, but I wouldn't recommend it. There's no net benefit here, no profit, just living. Talma avoids the bustle of the city that her family is resigned to, but as their letters take a sharp turn towards the frantic, they long for the life she has, the life they left behind. The grind of the city boasts a colorful facade, but in reality, it's markedly worse for the population. People are disappearing in droves, including Talma's sister. Her brother and his children fear for their lives. Talma's daughter searches tirelessly for her aunt. Her family's hopes wane, and the mayor, Talma's childhood friend, has lost the delicate grip he had on protecting the city. The player stands on, watching Talma's loved ones descend into urban despair. They cling to reality, all while her sister is caught in a delusion of the ceaseless carnival at the end of the world. But the game doesn't just tell the player what's happening, you have to actually live it. There's a quiet melancholy that grows louder and louder as the forces of nature overtake the homestead. The weather picks up, rain, then thunder, then a storm of whirling winds and cacophonous echoes of the past. Then snow. And, well, I won't spoil the end. Talma's being swept away by a world that moves too fast for its own good. Her survival is tethered to the abidance of her home and the memory of her family, and without these things, she functionally ceases to exist. What are we if not the impressions left on the people and places that come and go? Just like her family, she is, in some ways, disillusioned by the life she wishes she could have had, or the life she can never return to. Meanwhile, the first letter the player receives is from Talma's granddaughter, who just graduated from an urban academy and is shipping off into space. She's escaping all of this, following her own path, and she got out. The game tells you from the start that with future generations gone, the long-enduring ancestral land will soon fade away, a quiet end to the storied history of a woman and her lineage. Like the city in the stillness of the wind, Hong Kong, particularly its Kowloon neighborhood, has a rapidly growing problem: a concerning lack of space. Hong Kong boasts infamy as one of the most densely populated and least affordable cities in the world, with Kowloon being the most overcrowded by a wide margin. Compare the size of each place to their respective population densities, and it's easy to see the problem. Families crowd into micro-apartments the size of a pinhead, but even worse are the aptly and sickeningly named coffin homes, cubicles of 2.5 square meters crammed into a building with barely enough space for a communal washroom. Some elderly men live in public housing units with stackable cages in place of beds, and many families are forced to split up due to a lack of space, further increasing living expenses. Though, there's a greater problem here, one deeply entrenched in the dogged ethos of Hong Kong. Mi Kam Ing, professor of urban studies at the Chinese University of Hong Kong, has this to say regarding the city's outlook on its poor housing conditions.
People didn't really object or complain, because they did not have the grounds to complain. There was a time when most Hong Kongers were refugees running from World War II, Civil War, and the Communist Party taking over in China. They had this refugee mentality. If you just escaped from a place that you don't desire to live in, then you would not have a lot of expectations in a new place, because your whole purpose would be just pure survival. It's not that people really want to live in small apartments. It's just very unfortunate that we don't have a strong enough societal consensus that decent housing is a right.
I'd like to reiterate what Ing said. Decent housing is a right. A right. The fact that generations of Hong Kongers are so disenfranchised to the point where they can't help but watch as their basic humanities are stripped away is sickening at least and disheartening at best. You can't thrive if you're struggling to survive, whether you're in a city or on a homestead far away from the industrial animal. And I don't think I'm breaking any ground here when I say that the places we live can greatly affect our mental health for better or worse. A 2019 study conducted by 4 Chinese professors of social and behavioral studies focused on the correlation between Hong Kong's micro-apartments and a citywide increase in stress and anxiety. The Housing Authority of Hong Kong regards 7 square meters the cutoff of space per body before a living situation is considered overcrowded. Su Ming Chan, the study's lead author, found a mean living density of 15 square meters, where 55% of interviewees were living below the Housing Authority's acceptable minimum. For reference, the average New York City apartment is 80.5 square meters, more than 5 times larger than a micro-apartment in Hong Kong. Coupled with the fact that 14% of interviewees were living below the poverty line, you've got a housing crisis that can't sustain its inhabitants. The The study showed that roughly 10% of interviewees proved moderate to high levels of anxiety, and 5.2% showed significant levels of stress. And while these numbers might seem low, this survey was conducted pre-global pandemic. One can venture a guess as to how the numbers have trended in the last 2 years. Another study from The Lancet shows levels of depression were up to 11.2% in 2019 from just 1.9% in 2009. Chan's study stresses the point that it's not housing cost, but population density that has a significant effect on mental health. She notes in a Bloomberg article that she interviewed people who regularly contemplated suicide, including fathers and mothers, highlighting the oppressive living spaces and their minimal natural light and lack of proper ventilation. I've lived in a fair few cities, big and small, and heck, I get stressed in the comfort of my own home all the time, but I'm fortunate enough to have the luxury of space, and that's not something that can necessarily be said for every person in every city. So remember how I said that Hong Kong's problem was a lack of space? That wasn't entirely true. In her 2005 book Land and the Ruling Class in Hong Kong, Alice Poon coined the term real estate hegemony, referring to how the housing market in Hong Kong is monopolized by only a handful of super-rich landowners. Poon posits that this housing scarcity is in fact more a function of the government applying artificial restriction to supply. The land system in Hong Kong is one that focuses on supply restriction, and the resulting artificial land shortage has been conducive to the pervasive high-cost setting. This quote might lead you to believe that because the Chinese government won't provide more land for housing, its citizens are forced to live in overpriced micro-apartments. And you'd be right to think that, but you wouldn't have the whole story. 3/4 of Hong Kong's 1,100 square kilometers is a preserved natural landscape, with 40% maintained as country parks. Put that against the meager 7% of land used for housing, compared to New York's 75%, and you can start to see the bigger picture. And with so little space at home, it's no wonder Hong Kongers have been flocking to hiking trails since early 2020. So should green spaces be flattened and paved, or protected? Not only for people's mental health, but for the sake of trying, in any way possible, to reduce the scars we leave on the paths less traveled. Building luxury homes on the outskirts of the city caters to the super rich. A $70 billion subversion to create artificial land off the coast of Lantau Island would only cement further environmental catastrophe, and call me crazy, but I don't think we're leaps and bounds away from a reality where the only inhabitable spaces left are those carved out of a natural landscape with cranes and drills. There's a bridge about 1.5 miles from my house with a detailed history of the century-old dredging that took place to physically extend 1 mile of coastline for ships to dock in port. I spoke in a previous essay about the historical shrinking of the Everglades, but it's common knowledge that the entire state of Florida is sinking back into the shallow depths of the Atlantic. Tokyo sank more than 13 feet during the 20th century, the Mississippi River Delta shrinks by the day, and the list goes on. There is no easy answer here. And while climate change is a topic on everyone's radar these days, I think we're too quick to overlook just how seriously environmental effects can wreak havoc on our mental health. Studies more than a decade old prove that victims of natural disasters find themselves at a higher risk of depression, anxiety, PTSD, and suicide, and 49% of Hurricane Katrina survivors developed an anxiety disorder in the years to follow. On the other side of the world, the increasing duration of dry seasons and droughts in New South Wales have been linked to a greater number of suicides amongst farmers who can't produce a healthy yield. Solastalgia is the emotional or existential dread felt when your sense of place is infringed upon by climate change or other environmental factors. Lars von Trier's 2011 film Melancholia is a great example of this. Two sisters navigate the end of the world as Earth sits on a collision course with a depression-inducing planet. Solastalgia is a word I wish I learned years ago, and if this all sounds too science fiction for you, oh boy, do I have examples. On the west coast of the States, California wildfires leave communities ravaged. The 2021 Dixie Fire burned continuously for 104 days, spreading over nearly 1 million acres. It grew to be larger than the state of Rhode Island, and is only the second largest wildfire in the state's history. For the millions of residents in the 5 counties that Dixie spanned, smoke-laden skies can just as quickly cloud any sense of hope that things will improve. The same is true of the roughly 50,000 mining legacy sites scattered throughout Australia and the negative effects they continue to have on the environment and local communities. I already mentioned the displacement that survivors of Katrina have experienced and the subsequent spike in anxiety, but the same is true for any other hurricane, earthquake, or natural disaster you may be inclined to research. And I think we're seeing something similar in the stillness of the wind. As paranoia in the city swells, storms gather, as if nature is angry with the urbanites. All the while, Thalma's home is engulfed by the same dread that washes over the city, leaving her defenseless against the looming climate catastrophe she was never prepared to face. I doubt I'm alone when I say that the impending death of humanity as we know it stresses me out from time to time. Eco-anxiety catches up with us all, and it's sometimes hard to look past. I suppose none of us can keep plodding away forever though, and I think it's important to take a deep breath and step away from all of this once in a while. For anyone interested in an artsier take on solastalgia, I recommend checking out the 2019 multimedia installation of the same name from Providence's Interactive, link in the description. Because sometimes it's good to just zone out, watch a video, and accept that we can't fix every problem. While I may go way out there with apocalyptic analyses, I also know that I'm guilty of wanting to find concrete answers to impossible questions, but the simple reality is, we can't. We're only semi-permanent creatures in a universe that'll outlive us by an incomprehensible breadth of time. If there's one takeaway from this whole spiel, it's take care of yourself. Please. Mental health resources are in the description below. Never be afraid to ask for help, and know that you are loved. By me, if no one else. Like Thalma's grandmother said, and like I imagine my great-great-grandmother would caution, abandon this farmland, and it will all blow away. Thanks for watching, y'all. If you enjoyed this little narrative, consider subscribing to the channel. I'd really appreciate it. And for more stories like this one, check out this essay. See you next time.